A couple of days ago, we did an Evetech cheapest possible gaming PC in 2026, and that PC was right around 10,000 Rand, just slightly over 10,000 Rand. Now, today, I want to do a similar thing, but for Wootware. Now, if you're a South African, you'll know that Evetech and Wootware are pretty much the big boys when it comes to, online retailing for computer hardware and computer, peripherals and screens in South Africa. And so, naturally, I'll start with those two when it comes to the lowest possible gaming PC in 2026. Now, this PC, of course, isn't going to be something that will play everything at full graphics, but it will be something that can play everything at some sort of graphical setting, and it'll be an HD capable PC. I wouldn't expect to go 2K or 4K with it. Maybe in some games you could, but overall it'll be used for HD gaming. Now, a PC like this, of course, doesn't come with the newest and the greatest parts. That is to be expected, but this is, of course, a brand new PC build. And it's been interesting to put this together. So you'll see, starting here with the build, chassis-wise, you have a few options. You can do what you like. I filter by low to high. I took the cheapest one, but luckily this one comes with ARGB fans. So for 500 Rand, which is right around $30, you're getting what is essentially a chassis with high airflow, ARGB fans. It comes with, I believe, 4 fans. Let's see here. It comes with 4 fans, and it is static ARGB, unfortunately, so it's not, controllable ARGB. But still, for the price of 500 Rand for everything you're getting, I think it's a bargain. It does have this greater kind of design, so that leaves a lot of room for airflow. And at this price point, I think it is a good compromise to make. Now, personally, I might take something like this Huntkey chassis just because it's a little bit more low profile, a little bit more, it's just a box really. It doesn't look as lavish, as loud. It's a little bit more of a quiet thing. I would take this, I would put 1 fan in it if it doesn't have one in, and I would just stick it under my desk or on top of my desk and just forget about it, because this isn't the kind of PC that you build for it to look good. That takes a little bit of money to do, but you do have some options in this price range. The Antex VCX 300 ARGB is a decent option because it comes with actual ARGB fans. And if you like that fish tank style chassis, it might be a good option. I do enjoy FSP's cases. Unfortunately, this is a static RGB, but for myself, I would take one of these Huntkey chassis just because I like the way they look. For the video though, I think this makes sense because of the airflow, and I think this is a high seller because people like these sorts of designs. But again, it is really up to you what you want to do there. Moving on to the CPU, CPUs have come down a bit in price. You've got a lot of good options. The 5700X 8-core CPU is a good gaming CPU. The 5600X is more than good enough for HD gaming. The 5800X 3D isn't as expensive as it was at one point. I might look at getting one of those at some point. And, all in all, you've got a lot of choices. But for this, we do start at the bottom. And for the availability in Wootware, if you are using a specific motherboard, let's remove this motherboard. So the cheapest you can go in Wootware would just be an old, well, it's not that old, but an older Celeron chip. And then the one that we took in the Evetech video is the Ryzen 5 3400G, which is only a 4-core CPU, but Evetech didn't have better options at this price point. Wootware, though, have this, the Ryzen 5 4500, which is a 6-core CPU. It does only have an 8 megabyte L3 cache, but that is twice as much as the 3400G, and it is, of course, a 4th gen Ryzen CPU, not a 3rd gen one. So a lot of upgrades there. It's a much faster CPU. I say 4th gen, I just mean in namesake. It is a 3rd gen in terms of, Ryzen CPU, but the 3400G is technically a 2nd gen. So it is a generation up, and it's got a better boost clock, it's got better speeds, it's got 2 more cores. It's just an all-round better choice. It's a 6-core, 6-thread, I believe. It might be a 12-thread. Let's check that. 12-thread actually. So, you know, gaming wise, it's pretty good. It's got the same power draw at 65 watts as the 3400G. So I believe it's a much better choice. Now with that, you've got some good motherboard choices as well. And, you know, motherboards as well aren't really that expensive anymore, especially older DDR4 ones. I do like this ASRock one, but, you know, any one of these, if you choose them, they're all pretty much the same thing, really, just with some variety in some of the departments. This ASRock one here does have an M.2 slot. It has a, as I said in the Evetech video, a PCI slot, you know, an extra PCI slot above the PCI Express slot, which helps a lot with, you know, things like sound cards or network cards or expansion cards or whatever it is that you would need to do. So I do like it when they do this. I like the small size of this. I think it would go well with a chassis like this, the one that we had selected. With a chassis like this, it would go well. With one like this. So it's a good looking motherboard as well, which, you know, doesn't really matter that much at this price point, but it's always good to have. And then, you know, it does come with 2 DIMM slots, of course, a couple of SATA slots, but for a small little gaming PC, this is really all you need. It is budget, but it's budget in all the right ways. So that's what I've chosen for this. Then we are moving on to the RAM. Now this is where it gets interesting, because on Evetech, 16 gigs just wasn't really an option at this price point. But on Wootware, and I'm not saying that it's a good price, because it's not. Almost 2,000 Rand for 16 gigs of RAM is ridiculous, but it's a lot better than what Evetech had to offer. So we get 2 more cores on the CPU, we get twice the L3 cache, we get a lot better speeds, we get a generation up. It's just a much better CPU, many more threads. So the CPU is a lot better. And then RAM wise, we get twice as much RAM. It is, you know, pretty much the same speed of RAM, but it is twice as much. And for gaming, that makes a big difference. Unfortunately, it is only a single channel stick, so you do lose a little bit of speed there on DDR4 motherboards, but it's a lot better still because of the capacity. So we do go with that 16 gig stick there, and not a great deal, but a better deal than what some people are offering, or some marketplaces are offering. Moving on to the graphics card here, this is where Evetech has a bit of a leg up on Wootware in terms of budget graphics cards, because the 3050 6GB Storm X, the exact same one that we used in the Evetech video, is 500 Rand more expensive on Wootware, coming in at 4,000 Rand, which it's not that it's a bad price, it's not a terrible price, but, you know, for merely another 1,900 Rand, you could get a 5050, which is just such a big jump. It is insane how much of a jump that is. So, you know, I wouldn't actually recommend doing this build, because for 13,000 Rand instead of just under 11,000, you could get twice this performance in terms of graphics. And I think a 5050 would complement the rest of this PC relatively well, especially if you could add more RAM. But for the sake of this video, you know, this is going to put the performance close to the Evetech one, but a little bit better because of the more RAM and because of the CPU upgrade there. So it is a faster PC. But graphics card wise, it's the exact same thing. And, you know, just to run through the summary, it's a good graphics card, good enough for HD for most games. There's nothing it won't play. It just won't play things at full for most games now. And it is a ray tracing capable card, but it's not the best in terms of ray tracing. It doesn't have a lot of RT cores, and you know, I wouldn't recommend trying ray tracing with it unless it's a lightweight game. Not that I care that much about ray tracing anyway, it's just these days you need it for some things. It is only a 6GB card, so that's something to look out for, but yeah, I mean, a 4GB card just released this week, and we are in 2026, so the whole thing's going backwards anyway. Moving on to the power supply. We do take one of the cheaper ones. It is a Aerocool Lux. Now, Aerocool is a strange company because growing up for me, which is about 20 years ago, they were one of the big boys in terms of, chassis and power supplies, but they sort of subsided in South Africa for a long time. But they're back now with a range of products. So I'm not sure how I feel about them. I don't think they're one of the best. It is bronze certified and it is a low wattage power supply, so it should be okay. I like them. I think they make good enough stuff. I've used them a ton of times and I never had issues, but it is situation dependent. So this is just a basic power supply. I think it's good enough for most people for a build like this especially, and I think you should be okay using something like this. But if you do save up a little bit more, getting something a bit more of a namesake like FSP or even some of the Antecs, maybe not the Atom series, but some of the Antecs, Deepcool make really good stuff still, Corsair. But, at the price point, I think it's a good choice. And you do get 550 watts, which is not enough for, modern graphics cards, but it's still good for some lightweight graphics cards like this and some of the lightweight options from AMD as well. Now, here is where we have to sort of sacrifice a little bit with this build. We win in terms of CPU, we win in terms of memory, and I say we win in terms of case and power supply as well, because the Evetech build had proprietary parts, OEM parts. These are custom parts. So, this PC is much better overall, but here is the one place where I couldn't find a deal better than what Evetech offers. And this is the one place where I had to make a sacrifice. So in order to get the better performance, we have to go from, in Evetech's case, let me just decline that phone call. In Evetech's case, 512 gigabytes to now 240 gigabytes. But my reasoning is, just with the RAM, the SSDs are so expensive these days. And so I think it's better to take a smaller, cheaper SSD and either wait for SSDs to become cheaper again, or buy something secondhand that'll be a secondary drive that you can play games on. Now, after installing Windows and a few apps and so on, you'll only have about 180 gigs for games. So that's really like 2 games these days. So you are going to be very limited if you do end up going with a drive this small. But if you're okay with just saving up a bit more and waiting to get a bigger drive, or gaming from an external for now or something like that, this is a good option. On Wootware, the bigger drives are just so expensive. Man, the spam is crazy. It's all 256 and we are already past 1,000 Rand. Luckily, if you do this, you aren't using your NVMe slot yet, so you do have that open for the future. The first 512 SSD would be this one, the Arctic Hyperion. Now, if you do take this, let's take that and remove that, we are at 11,000. But for this video to work, I need it to be under 10,000 or under 11,000 at least. So that's why I took the one that I took. You could go even smaller. I mean, you could go 128, but then you would have almost zero space for games. So, yeah, that's the PC. I think it is, in terms of being a just over 10,000 Rand PC, it's very capable. It'll play games. It'll play them quite well. But instead of me yapping about that, let's check out a YouTube video about the PC, how it does, and let's see if it is a viable choice. I mean, it's going to be very close to the Evetech one, so we know that it is, but let's do it anyway. First up here, we have Alan Wake 2, and this is playing at low-medium settings with DLSS set to quality at 1080p. Now, you'll see that while not the best result in terms of frame rate, it is playable, and it is a little bit better than the Evetech result, and that is, of course, because we do have that little bit of headroom in RAM and in the CPU department. The CPU makes a big difference because it's not pushing the CPU too hard. There is a bit of a bottleneck right now. The CPU is a bit too fast for the for the graphics card in this case, but I have a feeling that in some games they will be a bit more aligned. Moving on to Apex Legends here. This is going to be more or less custom settings, mostly low, some high, 1080p, and we are looking at about 144 FPS, which, you know, you expect high refresh rate from esports games on a PC like this, so nothing much to say there. Assassin's Creed Mirage, we are looking at 1080p native, high or very high settings. Okay. See how it does. Okay, that seems to be quite a good result. It looks nice. The game looks nice for sure. It is running at about, you know, between 40 and 50 FPS. So this PC seems to be one where if you play single player games, it's going to be right around that 40 to 50 FPS mark. Now, you know, there's space to drop your settings because this is running at high settings, and it looks good. I think it looks really nice. But you can drop your settings a little bit if you need to. Again, the GPU is being bottlenecked slightly. The CPU is working a bit harder here, but the GPU is still the bottleneck there. And so I wonder if a 3060 would be a better match for this CPU. We'll take a look at the new Avatar game, see how that does. So this is high, medium, and low settings, a mixture of everything, with temporal anti-aliasing enabled. Let's see. Okay, that's not too bad. So this is looking like between 40 and 50 FPS with a mixture of settings, but it looks nice. Again, the GPU is being bottlenecked there. Nothing's running too hot. You know, these aren't the highest wattage components, and so you know, you don't have to worry about heat too much. This is, you know, sort of like something between a PS4 Pro and a PS5 kind of setting, kind of system. And so I would, if I built a PC like this, I would just put it by my TV and just enjoy games on it at, you know, these sort of settings. But yeah, I think it's, for the price, it's actually quite performant. And this game seems to be running between 40 and 60 FPS. We'll move on to, let's do Warzone. So this is running at, of course, HD with balanced enabled. Okay, just a mixture of low and medium. We are looking at about between 60 and 80 FPS so far. That's pretty good. Yeah, just right around 70. And so this PC seems to be very capable for gaming. If you're happy to play games at maybe not the highest settings in all of the games, maybe drop down to medium for some, like this. You know, it's a good result. It's even, you could even, you know, play competitively with a PC like this. Counter-Strike 2 is going to run okay. Low settings with model and texture set to high, 1080p, and this is getting right around 120 to 200 I saw, so right around what you would expect. A PC like this is best built to play games like these, and depending on what you do play, you know, you don't have to spend a ton of money. Cyberpunk, medium high settings, and so we can see that we are setting higher graphics than what we could with the Evetech PC. And that CPU is a big reason for that. Now, again, the GPU is bottlenecking us. It's closer. The CPU is closer to 70% at this point, but we do get right around, you know, 40 to 60 FPS, which again is a cinematic but playable result. A game like this with explosions going on and stuff, it might drop now and then, but all in all, not a bad result. Let's take a look at Diablo 4. I'd be interested to see how that does. So 1080p, mixture of settings. They're mostly set to highest. Okay, Interesting. And it seems to be performing quite well, getting right around the 70s to 100, which is, that's quite good for a modern game. 88. Yeah, very good. Again, the GPU is the bottleneck in this system. We'll take a look at one or two more. I'm not going to do Forza or Fortnite because we did see that in the Evetech one, so we know it works. We'll do Ghost of Tsushima with DLSS enabled because I do want to see DLSS in some of these. So high settings, but DLSS balanced. Now the reason I want to see that is because buying a system like this, you do expect to use upscaling technology. So this is 1080p high, but with DLSS. And it seems to be getting right around that 60 mark. So that's pretty good. It does look very Vaseline. I will say that. It's very blurry. So I don't know if I would play it like this. Let's see without DLSS. I mean, that looks a bit better. But the frame rate is about 15 lower. So I understand that in some games like this, you might just have to do that. GTA 5, I'm not going to check out. It's an old game. We'll take a look at Forbidden West, Horizon Forbidden West. This is no upscaling, medium graphics, 1080p. Let's see. Getting around 35 FPS. That's a little bit low. Let's see what it does with upscaling. Okay, it moves it up to about 50. Now what I would probably do is I would use upscaling, but I would put it on quality and I would put the graphics on medium. A game like this with a lot of grass and stuff, it's a bit difficult with the upscaling because it does make it look odd, but it doesn't look too bad in this. But these are examples of games where you're right on the edge of this graphics card is showing its age. You're right on that edge of this might be a step too far. We'll take a look at one more here. I'm always curious about Red Dead, but we did do that in the previous one. We'll take a look at... Let's do The Last of Us, because I'm curious. Okay, Last of Us, 1080p. No frame gen. No upscaling. Medium settings. Okay. Okay. Getting around the 40s to 50s with medium settings, no upscaling. Last of Us. That's not too bad. That's playable. I wonder if he did one with... No, he didn't. Okay, well, let's talk about it. So, I think this is a good use case for this PC, right? Now, I probably would enable DLSS on this game because I would want to play at around 60 FPS. But, I mean, you can get visually a good result. And a playable result, especially in single-player games. This is more or less what it's like playing on a PlayStation anyway. Now, a PlayStation is more comparable to a 3060 than a 3050. But the point is, okay, there's a bottleneck. But I still think it's better to have a bottleneck with a 6-core CPU than not have a bottleneck with a 4-core. Because the PC isn't just used for gaming, right? Like, if it's just a gaming PC, the debate changes. But if your PC is used for a ton of stuff, it's always better to have a 6-core. And yeah, I'm relatively impressed by this. I think the PC shows a lot of life. Now, it is interesting that this GPU isn't optimized for this PC. It seems like it would be better suited to maybe a 7600 from AMD or an ARC B580 or maybe a 3060 or even a 5050. So I might check that out, do something like a 15,000 Rand PC build, because it's interesting the jump from 11,000 Rand to 15,000 Rand. The quality jump is incredible, how much better a PC does at 15,000 Rand. So maybe I'll make a video about that, but this has been very enlightening and interesting. And can you build a just above 10,000 Rand PC on Wootware that will play games, modern games, AA, AAA, indie games? You definitely can. And single player games like these, this is like a PlayStation 5 at the end of the day, and I have one, so I know that it is. Okay, maybe if it had a 3060, I would say that, but still, it's a good PC, it's a good result, and you can definitely play games on it. So what do you think? Would you build a PC like this for just under 11,000 Rand? It is technically cheaper than a PlayStation 5, but You do need to get a keyboard and mouse. You do need to get a screen, but those things are pretty cheap these days. So this entire build would be something like 14,000 Rand if you did it carefully, and those are new parts. And, you know, a PC is just more capable than a PlayStation or an Xbox is. So it might be interesting to do a one-to-one build to a console, but include peripherals and a screen, and see how that feels. But for what it is, the just above 10,000 Rand PC, I think it does really well. I'm quite impressed by it, and this just proves that you don't need to be rich to play games. Even now, with the memory prices, this is still possible. So there's always a bit of hope right around the corner. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think down below, and I'll see you in the next one.